it in general, and then I can share it on YouTube later. And then you can just share it on your Facebook channel, and I don't want to screw it up because it seems like that can happen pretty easy. So I'll figure it out later. For now, we'll just stick with Facebook. Yeah. And then I guess I could share like the link onto YouTube, but I don't want to mess up my internet either. Do we have a delay still?
I don't see anything on Facebook yet, but I'm going to go back to your page and try it again.
Okay. So looks like I'm live, and we're side by side. So it looks like it's on Facebook, although the quality is pretty.
Can you see it? Are you on your Facebook and you can see it?
I'm on my page now, but the quality is really bad.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't see anything. So weird.
Maybe I should click out of Facebook and go on YouTube and see what happens there.
Well, you're recording it, so you can just post it wherever afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, I see something. Now I see something.
Is it working? It is definitely a delay on my end.
I'm posting it to my page. It's working.
Okay, we'll just go with this and see what happens. We're recording it so we can share it if it's too fuzzy. This is so funny. What's this taken an hour for us to get this?
It has.
Rolling?
Right at the beginning when I saw you come on my thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so easy. This is going to be like the easiest time. No.
I think we just fry out the system every time we get on here, pretty much. All right, well, let's just kind of go into flow, and we can share this later if it's frozen. Frozen on let it go, let it go.
No, I got that too. Oh, there's been like a huge theme for me about like melting as well, right?
Mm-hmm. That's so funny. So yesterday I wrote about the same thing. I was writing about snowflakes, kind of holding that shape, right? It's all unique and individual. And then when it melts into one another and comes back into the water, it still holds that original imprint of the snowflake. It's just now changed shape and changed patterns and merged with all of the other snowflakes.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really interesting analogy. It's like you're taking your individual imprint and you still contain the essence of that imprint. You're just merging it into all of the other imprints.
Mm-hmm. And so what does that hold? That holds the memories. It holds its crystal living water. It's a lattice work that holds and retains its original memories, even though it's changing shape and structure.
Ooh, that makes me think of memoirs and reservoirs and memoirs and memoirs.
And me more. We
So
could
memoirs, historical accounts, biography written from personal knowledge. You know, the personal knowledge of the past and the present, of everyone's own individual memoirs, like melting into this, I don't know why I'm hearing cistern. And then also like memes, you know, memes are like weird snowflakes of information that we create.
It's true. Just from that picture, you're getting, and it's funny because I was attributing this to language and different forms of communication, but also recognizing like a meme holds within it. Yeah, it holds picture and words, and then it has, like we were talking earlier about pinging off of each other. So you see one meme And within that holds a packet of information, right? It holds the letters and the words, and then that attaches itself to our recognition patterns that we then connect into to associate a meaning with it, right? Or an emotion, a charge. And so I think we were a charge, right? We were talking earlier about just how important it is for us to really know thyself. And I would say especially right now, but when I say especially right now, it's right now. It's right now. It's right now.
And that brings me back into um, what I was tapping into and sharing this morning in a video that I made. Um, it was really, really clear and came in really, really strongly about how much stimulation we get. We're very overstimulated at this time, right? So when you're talking about memes and information and charge and how that feels, and so many of us are scrolling through the memes, through the memoirs, through the memoirs, right? That are just like constantly sending you into a spin, into a stimulation zone,
Yeah.
not necessarily into the deep reservoirs of truth. It's almost like shocking us outwardly and like firing these synapses and getting us very stimulated. And then we're like, okay, next one. So we're not even necessarily digesting it. We're not really going really deep into the experience of it. And it's just kind of like this thing. And you and I think Jess as well, like we've all in our own ways taken quite a step back from social media. And even just saying that, social media, right? Media, my ideas, like the social ideas, the social waterfall stream of stimulation, explosion, extrapolation, like electrification.
Yeah. I always think of it as like it's a lightning bolt, that's one of the things I love. We think light it holds information, right? It holds energy, information. But essentially the social media is it's an interactive platform, right? So a platform is connected into a motherboard, and a motherboard is connected into, but it's all streaming with the collective nodules and nodes of information. And essentially, we're on information overstimulated overload. And so we are so used to streaming, right, at a particular bandwidth. And we're like, more, me. Instant gratification is kind of one way of looking at it. But what I'm hearing is instant gratification. And when you graph into something and you make it part of yourself, and I'm hearing stem cell, like you're in the stem, you're in the network. And so it's important for the community as dare I even say light worker? Let's say human, hue, the sound, the color, the shape, that we all are individual as these beautiful individual snowflakes. And we're then connecting in this lattice work of communication. But it's important to recognize that our own individuality in this and not get lost in everybody else's memes and everybody else's interpretation of what that means.
Yeah, and as we are speaking, the words weather modification came in my head, but it's not talking about the weather outside. It's talking about our weather inside of our minds, and how all of this overstimulation is causing weather modification within our own ecosystem, within our own atmosphere.
As you say that, I'm hearing weather modulation, and I'm hearing we aether. We are the modulators. So we are essentially creating that stability and or not. And so we're modulating and keeping track of, right? I wrote something recently that spaghetti models can't track us. It's like,
Yeah, I'm getting like cell towers, but our cell towers,
mhm,
cellular reception, our cellular reception, and our holy moly, our individual system. Oh my
mhm.
goodness, there's a lot.
Well, the thing about this is, as you're talking about this, I'm going to try to share this on YouTube. We'll see if I shut us down or not. But as we're talking about this, I think that's something to keep in mind is it's as within, so without. So we're seeing this craziness. I mean, I could go into so many different places. I'm seeing the snowflakes, I'm seeing the ice, I'm seeing the turbulence in the weather, I'm seeing the turbulence in the internet, and in the what I'm hearing is meme activity. But again, it's like, what does that mean? Because we're being guided by watching and participating and interacting with one another. And so we're really being called to go back in and invest in. And when I say invest in, I'm seeing like putting a life jacket on, put our own life jacket on first, and invest in us, in our own value, which is then essentially, once we come back into that inner modulation, we're then able to expand that outwards and have a greater impact on the all.
Yeah, so I'm seeing um coming into our own, like I'm seeing us almost like our own individual cell towers, like of a signal. And I'm seeing how like our internet is a direct, like it's as above, so below. It's a direct creation from our own technology projected outward.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing, like you were talking about before we came on here, the earth, or like just this idea of turning inside out. But I'm seeing that as the internet. I'm seeing the internet as turning us inside out. And then really being pulled back into yourself, pulling your energy back into yourself so
Mm-hmm.
that you become your own really strong signal, as opposed to when we really are being pulled into the internet and it's like really pulling us. I'm seeing the pixelation and the scattering happening with that.
Yes.
Like
Ooh.
really taking the time to create a structural support network within your own internet, within your own internal net and internet system. And
Well, part of that is too is as you're describing that branching out, somebody posted, I don't know who it was, if it was Robert Ward Grant, somebody I think we both follow, and they posted this picture of synapses, like a brain synapse trying to make that connection with other brain synapses, and it branched out and spread out. And oh, I'm getting goosebumps. And so it was a really cool visualization. I'll have to go back and see if I can find it and share it. But essentially, it was creating these branches in order to spread out so that it could connect with other synapses within the brain. But you were describing us stretching out. You had said, like when I said describing the earth going inside out, you were having that visualization of dropping down into the water, right? To drop down into stillness. And then simultaneously, I'm seeing that. And you said you felt this feeling of stretching, right? As you did that. And I'm seeing that happening as well. It's like we're expanding and stretching and branching out, but we still have to draw that all back within, because otherwise we're stretched too thin and we're firing all of our resources everywhere else. But we are the original synapse that's doing the branching out. And I know we're kind of talking in a little word soup here, but it's fun to play with this map.
yeah, huge, huge, huge invitation to really come back into your own body and recognize how far out of body so many people are. And you know, many of us have been in denial about that
Hmm.
because we're looking at great memes, we're doing great things, we're participating, it's great, but like not recognizing how outwardly projected we are and the impact that that has, in a sense. I guess, yeah, the invitation, come back in, come back in, come back in, and project from there, because it's actually, as you come back in, you might not even necessarily want to project from there, right? Like you're gonna come back deep in, and then you're gonna go, oh, this
Yeah.
feels really good. I don't feel like I need to feed that what I was doing. This feels really good in here. Or you might come in and be like, oh my goodness, I've got all of these, you know how in your inbox, in your mail inbox, you have all these unchecked messages? It's like so many unchecked messages from the body.
Hmm.
Hey, I need this, I need that, I want this, I
Yeah.
felt this. Like, be with me, be with me, be with with the real internet, be with the real web
Yeah.
life. The
So
real.
one of the things that I know you and I talk about a lot, and I think it's so valuable right now to kind of remind ourselves, is that everybody's got their own motherboard that's full of their own mapping system that's based on who they've tuned into, what they tune into, their own experiences, their own physicality, right? Their own mentality, their own emotional attachments. And no matter how neutral we all can be or aspire to be or work towards, there we're always going to have those filters as a human, because that's part of what gives us the experience that we're having. So this is where that discernment, this is where discernment isn't just about discerning what is real, what is our truth versus someone else's truth. It's also being able to discern what's going on within us so that we can then create from that space and give ourselves the opportunity to express and to merge with other aspects of ourselves. So this is constantly, from my perspective, changing and morphing and merging. And so sometimes what we may have, let's say, believed before may be shifting for us. And I think that's happening for a lot of us. And it's shifting so quickly that that's where, come back within, stabilize those frequencies.
Mm,
What am I tuning into? How do I feel about that now? Maybe 2 days ago that resonated, but today that just feels like something has changed a bit, because that's how quickly, from my perspective, things are shifting. I know I just kind of went off into like five different tangents, but
it just seems like there's a lot more to notice,
mhm,
um, in the body and in presence and it and in your own experience, in your own real physical life. There's a lot more going on, um, even if there isn't necessarily like the real world, the real pace and pattern and flow of the natural world doesn't move as fast as the technological world that's merged with the mind space. You know,
yeah,
it's our mind space that connects with the internet that is being augmented even
mhm,
more to move at such a fast, rapid pace, which is the weather modification, right? Of our own internal environment.
mhm,
And that has a direct impact on the biological body that is unnaturally being augmented to the space and pace and rate of this technological projection.
yeah,
Well, the body is not able to go at that speed.
all the time.
not all the time. And often it's just, it's like you were saying at some point about resources, I'm hearing like it's tapping into your vital resources. And it's not for free. Like we think it's free, but it comes at a cost. And what is the cost that we're paying? And are we paying attention? And are we paying with our attention? And yes, we are. And what does that mean? And we're being called back home into the natural, oh my gosh, internet of bodies that we are, that I am. Um,
Bodhi
well,
body,
yeah, we will not be.
the Bodhi tree.
I'm just like making this declaration for myself right now. Like, I will not be augmented. We will not be augmented. I come back in to the still point that I am and allow myself and my cells and my cellular structure and makeup to be conducted from there, from that still point. And we are in the 52nd key today in the sun. That's the gene keys, moving from stress to restraint to stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Line 2 of the dancer. So that's like an invitation to come into the body and to sort of move, like instead of just meditating,
Yeah.
more like a tai chi, or more of a just like, if you watch the trees in the wind, right, as they're just kind of like moving around, just kind of letting the currents of life move you, which will help to alleviate stress.
Yeah.
Without reading the key, when I think of restraint, it reminds me of composure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, a composition where the notes flow, like you're feeling the music and you're composing, you're writing this flow. So it's not necessarily so structured, but there is some structure, there is some intention to the movement. You're not just acting to act, you're not just moving because you can't be still. There's a stillness in that dance and in that movement. So we're tapping into the stillness and we're conducting from there, instead of the being extracted constantly and stimulated, and
Mm-hmm.
having overstimulation force ourselves into nervous movement.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back into connecting into the stillness, and then moving because you are inspired by the love and the life force that you are.
So funny as you're saying that, I'm like inspiration, and then the whole composition put me into such a spin. So so for me, I look at composition, I play with that, and if, like what you were saying, composure, strike a pose. What are we posing for? How are we positioning ourselves? How are we lining ourselves up? What angles are we lining ourselves up with? What are we writing or composing? Like I think of the composition pad, the notebook. And then I also think of composition into, well, I always talk about composition compassion, but I'm seeing like a composite, which holds all kinds of things inside of it. So, and then when I say that, I'm hearing composite, compositron. Like I just went into such a different space. And then I'm also hearing integrity. So we have this composition, right? This pattern of whatever it might be that we're composing, a composium, and how we have to hold that integrity, which also means the balance. Because if a building loses its integrity, it collapses, it falls apart. So this is that back to that play on words with integrity, integral, all of that I'm kind of tying in with this, because this comes back to spreading ourselves out too thin, not refilling our own. I think you mentioned earlier, I was picturing a chalice, but you said like something along those lines. And also, it was interesting because you're talking about gene key 52 coming out of stress and into, what did you say?
Restraint.
Restraint. So I see stress like, again, it's being put on us. We've got this stress. So we're already under stress, which is actually pressure, which is
Ooh,
actually, right, cooking. It's alchemy, but it's also PSI, pressure in resistance. So I'm like going into this
well,
crazy space with that.
it's amazing. It's amazing because what you're saying is like what I'm reading right now. You're literally explaining what the gift of restraint means. And in here it says it doesn't sound particularly exciting or dynamic, but
Mhm.
ironically, this is one of the most remarkable gifts in the whole genetic genome. This gift, like all the gifts, is about striking a balance between two extremes of energy. In this case, the energy of activity and passivity.
So I'm just going to draw what I was seeing.
It determines the source signature of all activity in the world. If you begin something from a place of fear, that seed of fear will infect every aspect of the expansion of that activity. So, this entire invitation today is like to have your activity stem from that place of stillness within you. To pose, right? Where are you posing from? Where's your position? Where are you coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Are you maintaining your integrity and your structural composition in your dictations, in your motivations, in your activity, in your actions, in your as you're conducting or directing yourself? And with like everybody's feeling this immense energy right now, like this high voltage energy, which in itself can sort of have us feeling pixelated or scattered.
Yes, I love that. Pixelated.
On the world stage with regards to social media, its impact on us, its augmentation and in the weather of our collective mental streams,
Mm-hmm.
streaming systems, which connects directly to our nervous system and our emotional body, and thus our energetic body, our toroidal field, our heart and brain fields that we penetrate out. Again, we are cell towers. We are biological cell towers. So I'm being guided to like really hit this, hammer this home. I know I'm repeating
No,
over
I
and
love
over.
it. I'm getting visuals as you're doing that, and I'm sharing this one.
Is having a biological correlation that is implicated across this entire globe, which again reminds me of how you were talking about the globe turning inside out and how
Mm-hmm.
we're being sort of pushed and pulled and turned inside out, but yet we're being guided to turn inside
Yeah.
ourselves. Turn
So, yeah.
in first. Check
Yeah.
it. Earlier on, check yourself before you wreck yourself. You know,
Well,
stay.
I was kind of seeing that because, and it is like it's checking in now, checking in now, checking in now, because what I'm hearing is these units of pressure, these units of pressure that are coming in to flip our switches, so to speak, can happen and just flip us in a completely different direction almost immediately. So if we're not even balanced enough to recognize that, all of a sudden, here we are upside down and going, well, how did this happen? Which happens to all of us. I have days like that. I'm like, wait a minute, what way is up? What way is down? I have no idea right now. I just have to lay in this. And that's where dropping down into the stillness can help us. Like, I love the visualization of just sitting at the bottom of water and just being in that space. I do a visualization of going to the cave. And I know bears have been big for our conversation topics and Jess's conversation topics. I used to always visualize going to that cave and literally laying inside the arms of a bear. And that
Oh,
was my like place where, it's
oh,
like, where do you want to go? And I would just be like, I'm going to lay with the bear. And I'd have other animals in this cave that were hanging out too. But it was like this big
oh, that's beautiful.
folding in and
That's really
using those. Yeah, I just love, like, I've got goosebumps right now. But that's where our individual, some people might feel like, oh no, they want to be at the base of a waterfall. Somebody else might feel like they need to be on top of a mountain. you know, where does that place, where does that visualization, what tools do we have at our disposal, you know, to help us find that sense of comfort and stability?
So I want to read more about this gift of restraint. The 50-second gift contains a secret of ecology. All true endeavors require a profound understanding of restraint, a phenomenon natural to all living systems. If a system is to last, it must learn to feed itself whilst it grows. If it is to proliferate, it must learn to diversify and take in an ever expanding source of nutrients. However, for a system to really be successful, it must have one vital factor at its core from the very beginning. It must serve more than just itself. The 50-second gift of restraint requires a great deal of patience and an understanding that everything in nature moves at its own speed. Particularly in the beginning, things appear to move slowly. The moment we try to rush an idea, we disturb the ground in which it is sown. You can see from this how easily humans fall victim to stress. The 50-second gift you may divine is a gift that concerns human organizations. At its deepest level, it contains the seed that will one day bring all human beings into a perfect organizational unity. For now, this gift concerns our own trust in life. To begin anything, you must first have a clear intention. The more selfless your intention, the more power it will have. And I'm going to close with one question. How can I be of the greatest service to humanity? Then you must live the answer.
I think it's important too to though recognize that as you're speaking about that, like some of this is it our being of service. Again, we have to come back to us first though.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's how you can be of greater service,
Mhm.
is to not add to the stimulating, like overstimulation that we have, to not add to the confusion and the chaos. Sometimes it's a great gift to humanity to stabilize yourself, to
Yeah,
become a stable conduit of calm, clear, concise intention.
right,
Even like my intention is to be uplifted. It could
right.
be just like that. My intention is calm. My intention is love. My intention is to brighten someone's day, even if
Mhm.
that's just me, like my own day, you know?
Yeah. And as you were saying, intention, um, so I mean, I could go into so many different things here. I'm seeing identify, intention. I'm seeing the 10 as double fives. I'm seeing a reference to, well, okay, a couple different things. When we're in this space and we find ourselves out of balance or pulled into too many different directions, right? That strain. And we're not responding. I always think of the bridges, like, you know, a lot of the buildings that are built around earthquakes. Like they're not supposed to just be rigid. They're supposed to move a little bit in order to expand that and stretch out so that it's not, the pressure isn't just put on one place, on one part of the body. It's not one subject, it's not one memory. It's like, let's spread out and recognize that that we can hold more when we expand our capacity for holding more.
Ooh, when you said that, I was hearing compassion at the same time as you said capacity. Expand our
Yes,
compassion to hold more.
yes. And that is the, I always, the compassion, the compass, the inner compass, the intention, right? That's our tent, our teepee
That's the love.
that
Yeah.
we're in, that triangulation that allows us to merge with all ports.
Oh, I love that so much.
So this
I
is
love that.
fun. The I'm like, this is our, so the G, and that's something else too that's cool to talk about with the gene keys. just like when you're reading into these gene keys or you're reading, I pulled a couple chakra cards, which I'll share in just a moment. I think it's funny, the synchronicity around it. We're being called not to be so literal with all of it and to use it as a living light library, light language, an ability to see the information from many different angles. And I drew this, which is not like anything crazy, but I've got my light, my ring light, I'll put it in the middle. So I wrote resistance and then stress at the top. So I was being shown all of that energy going out in multiple. Should I turn off the light?
Oh, that's
Stretch,
good.
resistance. So we've got that spiral, right? We're being pulled out at the same time we're drawing it in, which is happening simultaneously. So what happens then is we then stabilize and become more of that interaction and expansion at the same time. And we're like, oh, this side's getting a little weak. Let's send out energy back out and pull it back in. And we then find where we're out of, like you were talking about dancing. We're then like, oh, that hip needs to move a little bit more to the left. Open that left side body up. Let's move that up the heart space. Oh, I'm not grounded enough. Let's send it down into the feet. Like just finding these, our higher capacity for fluctuation
And flexibility.
mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring up these ancient megalithic structures from a long time ago, and they're polygonal structures. And if you go and research that, you'll see how the ancients used to build their walls in these polygonal structures without cement. And they were like 5-sided blocks that were all different sides, and they were built for the movements of the earth. And when the earth would move, they would literally almost flex because of the different shapes, how they all interlock. Mm-hmm. When the earth would move, they would just almost breathe with the earth and then come back together. That their buildings actually had a flexing capacity in the shape that they were built on. They were megalithic structures, which boggles our mind as to how they were even built. It was almost as if, like it, yeah, that's a whole other topic.
I know, I love it. Well, no, as you were talking about that though, I just pulled up a picture, right? So this is an example. Look at the triangles.
Yeah.
Many different angles.
Yeah, to make one wall, built of all of these seemingly things that don't go together. But because there's diversity in that wall, it allows for ultimate flexibility, which is so on point with what we're talking about. And I was just getting so much joy listening to you speak. This key is all about the torus and the toroidal field. So like, you don't know anything about these keys, but like give you a word and you can tap in the contents of the intentions and the structures. You just start, I'm almost thinking like you're reading this. So within the human DNA, the torus at the heart of all being is directly experienced through the state of enlightenment, which unites stillness, the black hole, with bliss, the white hole. The experience of utter stillness and bliss is derived from a higher functioning of your genetics. So in this, they talk about the stilling of the wave, and the expressing stilling of the wave refers to the stilling of the chaotic emotional energy field that currently dominates the
planet. Ooh. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to like.
Oh, that's okay. Go, please, if you've got something.
Well, it's funny because what you're talking about with the wave, right? I'm looking at this picture, for example, of all that energy moving out and then the energy coming back in to the core, stabilizing the core. And what I'm seeing is, I think I went out of focus a little bit, but that's okay. What I'm seeing is that's that longitudinal wave. That's what the toroidal spin is all about. It's like in order to balance that out, all these like cross energies, right? All of that static, all of that, what do you call it when you interrupt, right? Interruptions, trying to interrupt this. Yeah.
Distortions.
Distortions, right?
Distortion in the sound, right?
Yeah.
That distortion in the sound. So
Just gonna follow that.
we're being called right now, anyone who can, to resound together, to resource together, to stabilize together, to be the calm and still the wave. And that is the destiny of the 52nd gift. Is a seed archetype, and it concerns the unfolding of intention into individual destiny through service. It contains the seed of a great new beginning and the original intention and dream of mankind to realize our position, right? Strike a pose as the still point at the heart of creation itself. So this city contains within itself the power to focus humanity into a single unified field pattern. It emanates a collective energy field that will eventually pacify the human emotional system. And that's everything that I've been feeling today. I feel like we're tapping into that, really coming into that point, and then like you're drawing, expanding that point outward.
Yes. And this is happening across the earth. And what I was shown is, so I know that I always talk about Dan Winter, I love it, Dan Winter. And so he talks about the upside down, or not the upside down, that inside out. Like that's the holy grail, right? If you're looking at 0 point energy, I suppose. So here we are, we're going to have distortions. Okay, so I want to just talk a little bit about the pressure first and the stress. That's part of our experience though, right? So part of that is what we're experiencing, and we're making, the word that I kept getting all week was adjustments. We're making the adjustments that allow us, and when I say that, I'm hearing adjust means like adjust ability, which reminds me of justice, but it also reminds me of mean, golden mean. So we're making these adjustments in order to move out, and what I'm hearing is bend the rules, blend and merge the rules. And what are the rules? Those are the measurements that tell us how far we can expand, that tell us how far we can expand into, and how those distortions in our field have held back our expression in the past.
Oh.
So we're moving beyond that. There's a lot of distortions though, right, that are coming up to show us where we have been repressed, where we haven't fully expressed ourselves. It's being mirrored back to us as we expand out, and then we turn inside out. All that stuff that's at the bottom gets pulled up to be brought up to the surface as well, and then it gets pulled out and merged back in. It's this toroidal constant.
Wow. Oh, I'm hearing stress and respond. So it's like we get the stress, we get the stimulation, and then it's like respond and respawn. It's like reposition, come back in, reposition, expand out. Okay, more stress. So the stress is the pressure coming at us, just like you're drawing. Reposition, breathe. So we're mitigating the stress responses, and we're readjusting, and I'm hearing readjudicating, and I know that's something to do with law. And you were saying rules, and then I was hearing rule of law, the law of the land, and then I'm seeing our body as the land, the ley land, the ley lines, the like, and how there's this huge, that's why we're seeing on the world stage these huge re-regulations of law and the laws of the land and the laws of man. And then you're seeing revolting in different pockets, and revolting, and you're also seeing things that are revolting, like revolting.
Yeah.
And then now I'm hearing molting, like molten lava, but like molting. I think it's like a process bugs have when they molt or something. Yeah. And I think you were saying something about unchecked energy or something. I'm seeing like all of like this energy that's stimulating, that's agitating, that's causing people to express things that are to us can seem very bizarre, but it's been repressed. So the repressed energy of humanity in our genetics is literally being expelled, expulsion, exploded out. It's coming out in these obscene ways. But now I'm hearing like stress, like that causes a lot of other people stress to see that those expressions, to see what's being expressed, stress and respond.
Yeah.
Don't be tempted into, and I'm guilty of this myself, don't be tempted into being offended, an offense. Don't let that get you into offense, offensive mode, defensive mode.
Yeah.
And respond and still behave and understand like that certain plays, certain things need to be played out, certain energies need to be expressed. And it's oh my goodness, I'm going into rhyming flow now.
Yeah, I know. It was
unrest. Undressed, redressed, address.
Express. Well, when you're talking about address and all of this, it takes me back into that home-based flow. What's our address?
Yeah.
What are we wearing? We're dressing. How are we dressing our wounds? Are we addressing? Are we putting on our truth, or are we wearing somebody else's dress and clothes that they're telling us to wear? And that's a whole other ball of wax, but relevant.
How are we addressing our wounds, addressing, redressing, suppressing as a redress? We're just redressing it, but we're still repressing it, the wound. Like the wound, I'm seeing like Jumanji, like the Jumanji game, that's like boom, 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 boom. Like, listen to me. I am going to shake and break the effing, like, it's like, I will not be ignored anymore. And then it's like, no, we're just going to redress this. It's good. Like, no, we're just going to cover this back up. But it's like the shaking from within. That's just calling us in.
Yeah. And the inner quake. As you're saying that, you're talking about listen. The card that I pulled earlier was, listen for guidance, the ear chakra. So I'm going to just tap into that really briefly. And then the other one was Pluto transformation.
Into the depths, that's behind the door.
I don't know much about astrology, as you know.
Deep in the depths of the psyches, all things that go bump in the night, the dark,
Pluto,
the taboo. You can definitely go into the occult, or like the stuff that we're not comfortable talking about. So let's just close that behind the door. Let's meet at night in the secret society and talk about what we can't talk about in public.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier too, so we're seeing a lot of things play out in rebelling and revolution type energy, that's a sidebar. But what I want to come back to is the adjustments. So things are coming up and we're adjusting, but that doesn't mean that we're at the exact angle that we need to be at. So we're constantly having to fine tune to rearrange how things are done, we'll say, because that no longer fits. Nothing fits anymore based on this old paradigm. So we're going to continually, from my perspective, and I think yours as well, Kandice, see these adjustments being made. And these adjustments that are being made aren't happening fast enough for some of us, right? And some of us are like, whoa, slow down. This is happening way too fast. I want to, so it is, some people want it to go faster, some people want it to go slower, but ultimately we're all working to rearrange the angles in which we can then not reshape history, but create a new, and I'm hearing the polygon again, polyhedral, it's like now we're adding more angles that weren't here, that weren't available to us before.
Yeah.
And so this is where those of us that have the ability to kind of dance and sway with it, I'm hearing, when the music starts to sway, dance with me. Is that Dean Martin or something? Or I think he redid it. It was originally a woman that sang it. But anyways, um, I'm seeing that we're making these adjustments and we're like, whoa, we didn't know that was available. So we need this rule 5 minutes ago, but now this one fits better. And so while the people over here are still angry about that rule being made, it's already being in the works to get changed again.
That's a
Oh, those are
polygonal
those,
wall,
right.
right? And I'm being like, that's us. That's like the new wall that we're making. You know, each one of us has all of these strange angles and they
Yeah.
look wrong, but they're actually right. These are
Yeah.
right angles. You know what I mean? Like,
I love
we
that.
need that diversity to have the strength and the stability and that flexibility to flux under pressure and quaking at when the earth quakes and the energy comes in. That's the support wall that we need many angles to be able to brace and embrace the changes of the earth, of the nature. And it's making a lot of people uncomfortable because we have to practice this. I pulled this card today, acceptance.
It's a beautiful
Deep
painting.
acceptance for all of the myriad of expressions that are presenting. And every time I say express, I'm seeing milk being expressed at this, like, and milk contains all these nutrients and nourishment.
Okay, well, that's going to take me right into Soma.
Yes.
Woo! Okay, so the milk. I think that's important just to talk about a little bit as well, but I was going into transformation, which was Pluto. Says it is always darkest before the dawn. It talks about it might take time to see the results, but everything is happening in divine and perfect order. To speed this change, be willing to let go of the old. If there are hidden things in your psyche, Pluto will dig them out for your inspection and encourage removal. And it just talks about if you feel like you're in the darkness, it's only temporary. And then back to what we were saying earlier, it's funny, listen for guidance. I mean, that's basically know thyself, which is, it's not just listening for guidance from other people, because there's going to be a lot more people that are stepping up to express themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean that their expression is holding all angles,
Mm-hmm.
or they're coming from their own shape, their own snowflake. And so you or me as a different shape that still makes up part of this living light codex of beautiful liquid crystallization of our reality might hold a different perspective or angle, angel, form, or information, right? And so acceptance, which is also swan, grace. Swan is acceptance, right? Being able to accept. It's like that.
And
And
that's
also,
that's the mother's milk. That's the land of milk and honey, and that's the cosmic mother, and that's cosmic love, universal love, grace through suffering. And that grace comes to humanity through its suffering, because we just tend to suffer as humans because of our arrangement of feeling and consciousness and bewilderment and the way that we seem to respond to stimuli. We create stress until we come into the still point and understand how to know thyself and how to mitigate that stress with the diagram that you were showing. Once we come in and listen, right?
yeah,
Once we listen with the ear of the heart,
yeah.
the grace enters. We
So
enter the period.
it's interesting because, so I want to read this just a little bit, but while you're talking about that, I really want to play with the word stress because
Yeah.
this is talking about stress and restraint. And I always I want to come back to the bridge, because when we ask ourselves, do I feel stress? Some of that, it might be yes, but it may not be a bad thing. And so it's also getting out of that labeling something as good or bad or right or wrong. And without going into that whole spiel, because I do agree that for some people there is a right, there's always a right angle, but not everybody's angle is going to be the same. So my way I present something is going to differ from the way somebody else presents possibly the same information. That person may disagree with the style or representation in which I am displaying the same information, because they don't necessarily see it from the same angle that I am viewing it from, and vice versa. And what happens is, if we're in resistance, we're going to look at that wall and we're going to be like, nope, I can't line up with you because you don't fit in the same shape that I'm shaped in. And then what happens is those cracks never merge together, because we're always in resistance to someone else being a slightly different shape or a slightly different perspective. But look at all those different angles that fit just right in order to hold stability for the entire wall. And if you change those angles, they're not going to line up. If we say, I'm going to change my angles to look like your angles because yours looks better than mine, that's not individuality, though.
I love that, because that kind of leads into a side conversation that you and I were having about following your own path. Your own path is your own unique shape. It's your own angles.
Yeah.
And when you have an invitation from the outside, from somebody that says you're doing it wrong, you're holding your shape wrong in the wall. So then if you try to contort yourself to their shape, you could throw the whole equilibrium off of the position that you hold. If you're trying to mimic somebody else's shape, who may also be trying to mimic somebody else's shape. So now you have two that are throwing off a pressure point, right?
Yeah.
Pressure points, AKA choice points, AKA how we are choosing to align and angle and position ourselves in life, in the wall.
Yeah. And we're going off in all these directions because we all have this calling to go in different directions. But we all come from, if we're doing this in service to, let's say we're doing this in service to humanity, because we're bringing it back into the gene keys. Let's say that's what we're saying. Well, humanity itself is a multifaceted shape. So therefore, how can we say this is the only direction for hue, HU, color, sound, and vibration to match? And I bring it back to the fractal, because if you look at a fractal presentation, it isn't the same. It goes out infinitely, but there's all different shapes that look just like that wall that are infinite, but it's still all connected. And going back to the ear chakra is the seat of clairaudience. It says its color red violet. I love the fact that it says red violet, because now we're pulling in the root of red up to the crown. So it's all of it. We tend to think our ears are only in our head, and I'd love to talk a little bit about clairaudience, because this just says clear hearing. The ear chakra is located 1 inch in front of the physical ears. Now, by the way, I want to just back up and say this is according to this information. This information is based on a perspective that was written at a particular time within a particular bandwidth. And this may have also evolved, but that's a whole other video. There is an energy center on both sides of the head. However, it is one complete chakra. The ear chakra processes what you hear and houses the desire for spiritual guidance. It allows you to correctly process. That's a fun word to play with, because that kind of goes in with wrong and right. What has been said in the physical existence. It helps you to focus your attention on the person speaking, thus helping to reduce communication errors. It also opens the channel for spiritual hearing. It is ruled by the planet Mercury. That's interesting. And it talks about it channels imbalances in hearing problems, lack of attention, and inability to process what you hear. So it's talking about using Mercury into the ear and throat, which I see as so symbolic because what do we use old school to check our temperature? Mercury, a thermometer. Mercury was used to run, it's used to run gravitational machines and charged pyramids and sacred sites. And anyways, um,
It's amazing. It's and when I say a maze, right? A maze, it's a maze that all connects together. It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
And your cards that you pulled, and oh my gosh, so much. But like I'm seeing how like our butt, our seat, like our
mhm,
little literally where we sit,
mhm.
connects all the way up through our heart, in between our eyes to our ears, like this amazing T square.
Yeah,
And which reminds me of the visualization I was given this morning of like floating down to the very bottom of the ocean with my butt to the ocean floor, feeling so supported, and then looking up at all. It was like this expanding butt to whole being connection, like supported and then uplifted. And then I can see and I can hear everything, which is totally like incredible to tap into the energy of the ear chakras. Like I feel like that, oh my goodness, like that's something that I definitely want to explore more and appreciate. I feel like it's so perfect for right now to draw
yeah,
our attention to that. And I think that's like something within my own apparatus that I haven't even been aware of, that that's what I use. Like I can literally that's definitely some like a major system that I use to get my insights, like all of my seeing. Like when someone's speaking, I'm listening so deeply with my
yeah.
ear, and it's going into my heart. I'm now it's causing pictures to form in my third eye. Like that's exactly, and Mercury. Oh my gosh.
And I'm always called to the H, like an H. It's a line in the center and it's two lines outside
Yeah.
balancing, right? And
And
it's
heart.
here. So it's
Here.
like, okay,
Ooh.
what's in the middle? What are we, right? In the middle of that H, which always reminds me of hydrogen and
The,
um
so we can go on and on forever. There's
we could,
meaning and activity in all life. It's so incredibly interwoven and interlaced with potency and meaning, and just to admire forever. Um, in this chart is in our radiant sphere is gene key 17, as well as in our pearl sphere. So our radiance is like what lights us up, and our pearl is like the culmination, like the point of everything, what we've gained from the pain and the beauty and everything.
yeah.
Moving from opinion to farsightedness to omniscience, which is like
Ooh,
the heart, which is like the ability to see with the heart in the center of every aspect, which I feel is connected to the ears as well.
mhm.
I don't think that they're separate, that and the heart and the ears and the eyes, like it's it is one working thing. So if
Yeah.
you're turning one on, it's like it's lighting the whole system up.
Well, this comes back to our support system. If we have stress and we're just focusing on one part, it's not balancing out our entire toolbox. It's not balancing out our entire skill set. And the whole thing with the ears is they're spirals, right? They're seashells. They're
Mm,
they're pulling everything in, and if we can channel that through, I was writing about the throat. Not, I know we talk a lot about chakras, but I was calling it the voice box, right? So
mm,
this is a box in the center, but it has a beautiful shape associated with it, and everything is a toroidal field or a toroidal spin. So what we're doing is, what I keep being shown, and we've talked about this so many times, is that pinball machine. It's like those are going to come in, and how we decide how much momentum carries it to action, thought, to having more of those thoughts, to, because clairaudience, and again, I'm always guided to stay really neutral and not say, well, it is this thing, and clair sentient is this, and clair cognizant is this. But my whole thing is it's all connected. So if we think we're opening up to hearing with ears to hear, that means we're also going to be, like you said, connecting everything. So what else is there that we are tuning into? And this is where our heightened, we've been getting the same messages that our sensitivity has gone up. So this is a heightened sensitivity. And so this means that we're spreading out all of our senses, our vision, our hearing, our touch. You talked about your hands in your first video, the live that you did earlier about the hands and working with someone. And as soon as they were open to it, I believe is what you were, all of a sudden they turned on. And so we're like, maybe we could talk about that a little bit. I know when we're using our hands without touch, even to tune into somebody else's energy field, this is also, we're hearing through here. We're feeling through here.
Yeah.
And that triggers thoughts, emotions. Yeah. And then the pituitary and pineal gland.
So here, ear, heart, healing. Like I'm thinking of like from our heels up, like it's just the whole comprehensive system. Yeah, we listen. We definitely listen with our hands when and our hearts. When someone's field enters our field, we are feeling, sensing, and as conduits, as facilitators of love embodied in physical biology, we directly respond to the field of someone else and what they require, need, want, accept, are open to, or not. So in really getting this up and fired up, we are in trust. We are in divine, direct trust. And that's our truest us. In trust is our truest us, our universal soul, our universal self, our universal sovereignty, us. And then we direct and we redirect our, it's our energy. It's the universal energy. It's source energy. And inside of the word source is our. It's us. It's our source. So we can give that to one another. It's ours. It's yours. I'm not giving you something that isn't yours. I'm giving you.
We could go into so many different layers with that, because I was kind of tuning into that. It's like, all right, so let's talk about that for a moment. From my perspective, if I'm in someone's field, we're sharing that space. So the question becomes, whatever I have to offer in that space is going to be, whether that person chooses to accept it as such or connect with it is their choice. And they may be making that choice unconsciously or consciously, but ultimately we're all doing that all the time throughout the day, throughout our entire lives. So there's this idea that, I know that this is a kind of an old, and this is something I haven't really sat down with, but it's like that permission. It's like we're on a free will planet. So essentially by being here, it's permissible that we're sharing energy. However, it is our responsibility to be able to manage our own energy. In essence, I keep getting that vision of like, who's the Red Scarlet, she like can't control her energy from like the Marvel comics, and it's like explodes things all over. And
Jean, is that Jean?
Yeah, that's an old school, what was that, the Wolverine,
the
Phoenix. So it's like, that's another thing that I'm seeing is like, that's an example of somebody just not having any, it's like they've held back for so long that once they let that open, they're just like, so we're being called to be to expand, but also be in our hearts and be in that place of acceptance and compassion, to realize that maybe not everybody else is in that same bubble, but that's part of us being responsible, is we hold our space and we share it, and that person may just feel a little different by being around us. Doesn't mean that we're sending them out healing energy and sending out certain patterns into their field, but if we're called to do that, what I see that is we're called to work on ourselves. So
Absolutely.
oftentimes I'll be called to do stuff, like I'll go out and do a session around me, and then I recognize when I go out into that space, now I'm in a different pattern, we'll say. I'm in a different frequency. So that's a whole other video. I just went off on a super different tangent.
I was hearing when you were speaking, they may not be in the same boat as us. And I was like looking inside the word boat, which is like OA,
Yeah.
original angel, original angle.
Oh.
They might not be coming from the original angle,
Yeah.
knowing that they're that they are an original angle or an original angel.
Yeah. Oh, that could take us so many places. So ultimately, it all comes back to us sitting with ourselves and using our own inner guidance and not being pulled into someone else's spin right now. And this is kind of an ongoing theme for everything that we're experiencing, right, as a collective. And recognizing that we're going to feel this stress and we're going to feel this pulled in many different directions. And that's very normal. But the more conscious we are about it, right, the different, then the more conscious we are about it, the better choices we make when we have those points of interaction.
Yeah. And going back to the polygonal wall and understanding that we're all going to be in different shapes, and that those shapes add to the flexibility and strength of unity and diversity, and to practice acceptance. And as the expressions in the world get wilder and wilder and add to stress, respawn, reposition within yourself, and come from the angle that you would want to, in making the best shape and choice for your own individual life. And just because things are changing shape out there does not mean that we are going to hell in a handbasket. Do not think that.
That's a whole other topic, right? Oh my gosh. Well, and that's the thing, is stress. It's like, are we going to allow what's happening out there to put it more stress on us? I mean, there's already enough going on. We don't need to keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. And that's part of us listening. Now, granted, we're all going through something, and what's happening out there is affecting, I would say, most of us in one way or another, between having to drive somewhere, not being able to go certain places. You know, we could go on and on, having differences between opinions and angles between family members or friends. I mean, we could go on and on and on with all of the stresses out there.
And the gene key 17, moving from the shadow of opinion, right? They're so rigid in their opinion, and it is the one opinion, moving into farsighted. So zoom out, okay? Zoom back, see the wall, see all the angles, see how they all kind of move together, right? See how each point of the angle is an opinion. It's essentially an opinion point, a choice point. Zoom out, and then you eventually access omniscience, because you are the eye of every point. You contain all the opinions all at once, simultaneously, and you were upholding wholeness within the paradox. Because those points are paradoxical, yet it is all sustained and all held within the support of the one source that is ours. It's the 1 hour glass.
I'm seeing that wall as a bridge. Like, we're looking at that as like a bridge. It's like a butting up against, and kind of like Tetris.
my God. I'm seeing it as a bridge. I'm seeing it as the lattice work. I'm seeing it as the skin,
Yep.
literally the skin. I'm seeing
Mhm.
it as the auric field. I'm seeing it as the honeycomb. I'm seeing it as the blood cells,
Mhm.
everything. It is literally the formation of life itself.
Yep. I know. And having said that, I mean, we could go on. We should probably give it like 5 more minutes, yeah, and say we're out from there. But I was laughing because I said abutment, and you were talking about your butt sitting down, and
Oh, Reiki butt.
Ricky butt. Yeah, for those of you who do energy work, there could be some crazy things happening within your own physical body as you do this energy work. It's a whole other video. But I will say this,
Hot cross buns. Hot
hot
cross
buns.
buns.
We are utilizing our entire instrument. And so when we're listening with our hands, or we're listening with our skin, or we're listening with our ears, it's all connected into this toolbox that holds all of those tools. And so the more we use them as a complete package, right, the more we understand what's stored within this package. And I think that would be one of these, maybe we'll do another video and talk about that, because I think oftentimes we're looking for something outside of us to give us power. Oh boy, this is a whole other video. But many of us who are awakening to these other skill sets, whether it be healing through the hands, whether it be distance healing and energy. And I use the word healing loosely because that's, saying that we aren't healed, when in actuality, all we're doing is opening up to those future versions of us that are already complete,
You
or
can
the
call
version of us now that's complete.
Yeah, if you want, and a different word for healing would be like reorganizing, restructuring, attuning, right? Like when you go to a chiropractor, they put you into the alignment that is most suitable for your body. So
It's an
energetically, you
adjustment.
can do that as well. Yes, adjustment, adjudicating.
Or those are our
I'll
themes.
be right back.
Okay. So we're sitting into these adjustments. And as we do this, what happens is we are then able to stream into more information, because we're not just tuning into just what we're hearing. And I'm sharing this, I know Kandice isn't sitting right here, but she and I have talked about this before. And so we're streaming this information through our entire channel, because what's happened from my perspective is we've been trying to funnel it, take all that information and funnel it through just one way. And that causes holes to come out, because it's so much that it ends up, I just keep seeing this water trying to be just funneled into this one shape. I was just saying, and all these little holes then poke through, because it's like, no, I need to go here, I need to go there. But when we're doing it through the heart, what that utilizes is it's almost like that's our stabilizer. So that we can hear, oh, I'm hearing this. Oh, I'm sensing this with my hands. Oh, I'm feeling it. And then we can kind of play with just that for a little while. But it's not saying that's the only tool that we have in our toolbox. And so I'm sharing this because I'm recognizing that a lot of people are activating whatever it might be, whether it be clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, their tools, their kundalini. And with all the stress that's going on outside of us, it's even more important to focus on the inside, because that can activate things within us that can pull up distortions that we didn't even realize were still there.
Mhm.
Fear of not being approved by somebody else, fear of our own power.
Yeah, like the phoenix, right? She was ultimately afraid of her own power, which made her fears become realized because of how powerful she was. She believed in her fear, and she
Mhm.
believed she could not control the power. So it ultimately that became the truth, and
Yeah,
her power took over her.
yeah.
And so, directing and conducting from your heart, from your hearth, from the hearth of your being, which is to me the source point. So you're directing from source, you know, outwardly, which is like completing the circuitry, because it
Mm-hmm.
is it's our source. So you're just sourcing directly. You're being resourceful
Oh,
as you
that's
are
funny.
sourcing
I keep
full.
coming back to that as you're talking the ear, and I'm like, okay, here's an H, but then I'm being shown, um, I'm being shown these triangles, and I'm being shown like, I'm just seeing that we're essentially, when we pull it all back in, we didn't then change that geometric shape. And I keep seeing it changing, changing, changing to make the appropriate adjustments to say, okay, this is coming online, so we need to stabilize over here. Okay, this is coming
Wow.
online, so we need to stabilize over here. Okay, now you're seeing this shadow. So we're going to show you another perspective to view that shadow from, another
Wow.
angle.
That that reminds me of the Lucia light machine. If anyone's ever experienced it, it's literally just white light pulsating, and you see it, and it sort of impacts your third eye. And it's supposed to be um, like they've modeled this light system based on the theta state that monks get into, and then they flash it at you. And if you watch it, it literally looks like a kaleidoscope of fractal geometry, and it's
Mm.
incredibly wild to experience. I just thought of that when you were speaking. It's like the light within you, the energy is, it's like a snowflake every millisecond that's like directly responding to the, what's needed in the moment. And that reminds me of mudras and,
Mm-hmm.
this sort of thing. And also light language, which is like a different sound for every associative uh, necessity, like whatever's needed
Mm-hmm.
based on whatever circumstances is happening. You're like, every single millisecond there's a total adjustment and something else that is needed and required, and boof, out of the instrument that we are
Mm-hmm.
comes that sound,
Mm-hmm.
comes that movement, comes that intention, out of the void space, out of the source space, out of the heart, right? Ask and you shall receive. So as an open conduit of source, of love itself for life, I
Mm-hmm.
am just being a director of our source in different modes, in different, you know, how
Yeah.
do you want me? Do you want me to massage you? Do you want me to sing to you? Do you want me to write you a poem? Do you want me to crack your back? Do you want me to cook you a meal? I'll
Mm-hmm.
sound for you. Healing comes in all different ways.
Yeah. Because that language can be written, it can be drawn in artwork, it can be formed with letters, it can be formed with sounds, it can be formed with mudras. Because what is it? It's just a vibration, it's just energy. So it's all about the intention behind that frequency. And we're in that, when we're in that pure state and we're in that pure space of just love and 0 point, we could say, we're tapping into the universal, which you kind of mentioned earlier. You're tapping into the universal substance that's already there. We're just pulling it through in our own variation, in our own variety, right? In our own radiance, variance, right? In our circle. And then within that circle holds all those different triangulations and angles. But it is a circle. And we're essentially then creating more space in which to expand into that maybe we didn't necessarily feel before. And we're making that choice by tuning into it. We're making that choice by saying, this is how I feel or don't feel. And when we do that, it opens our awareness. It doesn't necessarily, I think there's this idea that, I always say, I'm not healing somebody when I'm working with them. I'm not, this isn't how it works. All we're doing is expanding into that space and saying, I'm agreeing to communicate with this energy by listening, opening my skin to feel, by opening my internal resources like a flower. And that's different for everyone. And how we experience that is different for everyone too. You know, that's why some people cry, or some people get happy, some people get sad. It's movements of energy. And that energy may have been a distortion in the field, which isn't bad or good. It's just a distortion. It's just a shape.
Yeah, it's natural. It's nature. It reminds me of the flower opening for the bee and the bee coming and, smelling the flower or whatever the bees do, and then their furry little bodies pick up all the pollen, and then so it's just a process of life, and
Mhm.
some of us have natural inclination to enter into someone's field as the bee does to the flower,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and assist and facilitate as part of life
Mhm.
to create nectar.
Yep. It looks
I
different
mean,
for everybody. I'm just going into the beehive. We should probably end on that note because we could keep going. And to be continued. I feel like we're going to have to maybe play a little bit with some, like, I don't know, so many things, so many different directions we could go with all of the stuff that we just kind of opened today. But
I'm
we're thinking,
hearing be calm and carry on.
I'm seeing like this honey, right? Enjoy, just have fun, enjoy the sweetness, right? That honey, the nectar, and this vibration that many of us are experiencing.
The
It's like
buzzing.
the buzzing, the ringing, the vibrating in the body. Once again, be calm, find the sweetness in it because it feels like stress. But in actuality, it may just be that that stress is putting the pressure in exactly where it needs to go right now. So this too shall pass. Sorry, I'm hearing you shall not pass. Okay. Anyways, we're going to end on this note and to be continued. Hopefully, we'll get to do this more often.
Yay.
In love and light, guys. Thank you so much, anybody who tuned in. Namaste. Until next time.